Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today I'm looking at the 2026 Senate map and I'm looking at past Senate elections and looking at the overall national popular vote of the country and using that to run through a scenario of how the 2026 Senate elections could go. So right now in 2026, there's approximately 35 Senate seats that are going to be up for grabs among the Democrats and Republicans. Senate elections in the US are done every 6 years. So this election in 2026 has 35 senators that are up. Their last time they were on the ballot would have been the 2020 election. And the way things stand right now, with all the seats being left blank, Democrats start out with about 34 Senate seats, Republicans start out with about 31. And the way things are looking right now is there's quite a few of these Senate races that we are pretty confident we know how they're going to do. There's about a handful that we're probably more unsure of how they will go. But what I thought would be interesting was I wanted to take a look at past Senate examples. So starting in 2018, I wanted to start with this because this was the last time there was a midterm election after President Trump was elected president. He was elected in 2016, sworn in office in 2017, and then 2018 was the midterm elections. This was the Democrats' probably best case scenario they could ever have for a very long time. The Democrats were able to have wins in places like Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Montana, Nevada, and Arizona. Now, and they almost were able to win Florida, where the Republican Rick Scott was able to defeat the Democrat Bill Nelson. Looking at the popular vote, because this is where things are really, really important here, this map that just happened in 2024 as well, at the time was in a very good position for the Democrats. The Democrats won the national Senate vote, popular vote, 58.3 to 38.4. So approximately 20% the Democrats won the Senate map by overall all the votes added up. Democrats won by 20%. Now, for something like that, for 20% to happen between now and the 2026 map, something absolutely like catastrophic needs to happen. Like the economy needs to fully collapse, unemployment rate needs to get up to like 30% or something, like something out of the blue, something crazy for the Democrats to probably win the popular vote by 20 points again in 2024, where President Trump's approval ratings right now, I believe last time I checked Real Clear Politics, his approval rating is a little bit underwater by about a point. Trump's approval rating would need to go under to like minus 16 or something for a map this good to happen for the Democrats in 2026. But I want to show you because this is what the midterm map was in 2018. The Senate map in 2024, or in 2026, excuse me, is the 2020 map. And on this map, this was in the presidential election where Joe Biden did win the presidential election, winning a lot of close states like Georgia, like Michigan, like Nevada, and Arizona, and Pennsylvania. In this Senate map, Republicans actually won the popular vote 49.3, the Democrats got 47. So the Republicans won this map by about 2.3% overall popular vote. This is one challenge the Democrats have in 2026, is the map overall, where the Senate races are up, does favor Republicans. Because when you look at this map and compare it to, say, the 2024 presidential race, well, look where some of the races were up. We have Georgia. Georgia's a very close state, a very competitive swing state. In 2024, we just saw President Trump win it by about 2 points. So it's very, very close, but Trump did win there. Michigan, Donald Trump won the state by 1.4 points in the 2024 election. In the Senate race in 2020, it went to the Democrat by 1.7%, so it was very close. So there are some very close places on the 2026 Senate map, but the problem is, again, in 2020, which was a very good night for the Democrats, there was record high turnout for Democrats and Republicans in that election, but Democrats were able to win that. Republicans still won the national popular vote for the Senate, 49.3 to 47. Looking at 2022, Republicans and Democrats essentially tied on the Senate map. Republicans had 49.1, Democrats had 49. So Republicans barely squeaked out a Senate map win, but it was very, very close. And we saw Republicans win in Wisconsin, win North Carolina, narrowly lose Nevada, or not really narrowly, but lose Arizona, and then lose Pennsylvania. Now we come to 2024, which actually just happened. The Democrats in this one actually won the Senate map popular vote. The Democrats got 49.1, Republicans got 47.7, so that was about a 1.4% win for the Democrats. And on this map, what happened was Pennsylvania narrowly went red, Michigan, Wisconsin narrowly went blue, and then Nevada and Arizona very also closely went Democrat as well. So what we're looking at for 2026 is a Senate map where some states, depending on the national vote, could potentially get trended right or left depending on how things go. For the purpose of today's video, I'm going to be using the Senate map as an example where I don't think the 2018 map where the Democrats won by 20 points or anything is realistic. But 2024, the Democrats won the map by about 1.4%. 2022, Republicans and Democrats were essentially tied, and in 2020, Republicans won it by about 2.3. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to say it's a midterm elections 2026. The polling right now on RCP, I believe, is actually pretty close. Let me find the congressional poll for 2026 so far. Right now, the most updated data we have for generic congressional vote on Real Clear Politics right now has the Democrats on average up 0.8%. NBC News, Democrats +1, Emerson, Democrats +3, Singal, Republicans +1, and Fabrizio has it tied. So for the purposes of today's video, we're going to go off the 2026 Senate map with the Democrats winning the national Senate vote by 1 and seeing how I think things go. Now, there are some states that I think we know pretty much for certain how they are going to go. And we can even look at the presidential race just to give some insights here. But also we can look at the recent Senate elections. And let's go back to 2020 when they won. Oregon was a 17.6% win for the Democrats back in 2020. That one I'm certain is going to be a safe Democratic win. Idaho and Wyoming, I'm also confident will be safe Republican wins, no doubt there. South Dakota, Oklahoma, they're going to be safe. Louisiana, maybe the Republican senator gets primaried, but he will win that. Arkansas as well as Mississippi and Alabama. Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia, all of these are very much going to be safe for the Republicans. For the Democrat side of things, we also have some places I'm very confident are going to be safe as well. I expect Illinois to be safe, meaning it'll be won by more than 15 points. Delaware, I believe, will be safe. Rhode Island will be safe. Massachusetts will be safe. And then we kind of get into the conversation of we need to talk about the races a little bit more. Looking at some of the other places that I think could be safe, could be likely, kind of on the line. We have Nebraska voted by 38 points, but we did have a close-ish Senate election in 2024 where Deb Fischer won against the independent Dan Osborne by about 6 points. That one could cautiously be a little bit competitive if Osborne runs again, but for now I think it would stay as safe Republican. Kansas has some potential. It was an 11.4-point win back in 2020. I do not believe there was a Senate race in 2024 for Kansas. Yes, there was not. Looking at the other Senate race, we would have had 2022. It was a 23-point win. So Kansas can kind of be on the line between being safe or likely. I'm going to put it as safe for now. Texas, I think, will also be safe. We saw President Trump do better in Texas in 2024. That will be safe. Colorado and New Mexico, I think these are two places that both trended to the Democratic side a little bit in 2024. They will be safe. And now we're starting to get into some areas that were likely in the last election that I think will be safe now, like Montana and South Carolina and Florida. Alaska, I think, is depending on if Mary Peltola runs for this race. The rumors were she would be running for governor, not Senate, so I think that would be safe Republican, but we can always look at that as well. Virginia, we just saw in 2020, it was a likely Democratic win. President Trump lost it to Kamala Harris by about 6 points. That would be likely Democrat as well. 2024 Virginia was an 8-point win for Tim Kaine. So I think we see Virginia right now probably starting out as likely Democrat, though it would be a better night for the Democrats in 2026 than 2024. So now we start getting into more of the competitive states, though I think Iowa will still probably be a safe Republican state. And New Jersey, I'd say for now, we're going to start as safe. Maybe it shifts, but I think it starts as safe. These are the 7 races that could potentially become competitive: Minnesota, Michigan, Ohio, North Carolina, Georgia, New Hampshire, and Maine. And Minnesota and Ohio, I think, are more unlikely to be competitive when all things are said and done. But for the purposes of today's video, Democrats winning the popular vote by 1, this is how I think each one of these races go. And obviously, it's not just a blanket thing because the candidates chosen in these races do matter, but just on a generic level, we'll start with the state of Minnesota. Minnesota in 2020, when, again, the Republicans won the popular vote by about 2.3%, Minnesota was won by the Democrat by about 5.2. 2024, again, the Democrats and Republicans, the Democrats won the popular vote by about 2 points or so, about 1.4 points. Minnesota was a 15-point win for the Democrats. So it's certainly a big swing in 2024 to 2020. The Republican candidate wasn't all that great. I think at very least, very least, with the open Senate race in Minnesota, because the incumbent is not running again, Minnesota would start out as likely Democrat. Possibly could be over safe. I think it's more likely than not Minnesota would be a likely Democratic state than a safe or than a lean Democratic state. So Minnesota goes likely Democrat. Ohio's tricky because we did see in 2024 a very close Senate race with Bernie Moreno, who won by 3.6%. The Republicans lost by 1.4 or lost the popular vote by 1.4, but it was also against Sherrod Brown, the incumbent Democrat. This time around, it'll be the incumbent Republican. And the last time that happened in 2022, J.D. Vance won. He was an open race by 6.1%. In 2018, Sherrod Brown, the last time he was the incumbent, won by 6.8. 2016, Rob Portman won by 20 points. So Ohio is kind of a mixed bag for how it could go for 2026. It went by 3.6 points, again, when the Democrats were winning by about 1.4. So going down a little bit, Ohio is kind of on the edge between being a likely Republican state and a lean Republican state. I'm narrowly putting it in likely, but I could see Ohio being under 5 points, but I think it goes a little bit over 5 in this scenario where the Democrats are winning by 1. Now we're getting into the 5 Senate races that I think are really competitive, starting with the state of Georgia. Georgia, as we just saw, voted very closely for President Trump in 2024. It did not have a Senate race in 2024. In 2022, the Democrats and Republicans basically split the popular vote, and Georgia voted by 2.8% for Raphael Warnock over Republican Herschel Walker. This could be a situation where candidate quality really matters. For instance, if it's Brian Kemp, I think he has a very good chance at winning the Senate race. But if it's not Brian Kemp, there's a very good chance that I think it could potentially be the Democrats holding on and winning this one again. In 2020, the Senate national vote was 49.3 for the Republicans, 47 for the Democrats, and Georgia voted for Ossoff and Warnock very closely. So where it's Democrat plus 1, it depends on who the Republicans nominate. If it's Brian Kemp, I think a lot of it kind of just goes beyond what the national vote is, and Republicans probably win by over 1 but under 5 in a lean Republican margin. If it's not, if it's just Democrat plus 1 and Brian Kemp's not the nominee, I would have no problem putting it as lean Democrat and giving Democrats the seat. For just a congressional ballot, this is not my prediction, this is just what Republican plus 1 or Democrat plus 1 could be without Brian Kemp running. Georgia very well could be a lean Democratic state. Now we have North Carolina. North Carolina is fascinating, where in 2020, Republicans again won by about 2.3 points. North Carolina went to Tom Tillis by 1.7. 2022, the Senate map was essentially tied, and Ted Budd was able to win by 3.2 points. So Budd outperformed the national vote by about 3.1%. But when it was Tom Tillis, he underperformed the popular vote. It was 2.3 down to 1.7. He underperformed by 0.6. What that means for 2026, well, that could mean that this seat is very much in striking distance for the Democrats. The national vote at plus 1 for the Democrats would be essentially, if the math is correct, under half a percentage point for Tom Tillis in North Carolina, which certainly puts it at under half a point at striking distance for the Democrats, where Roy Cooper, if he runs for the Senate race, could potentially defeat Tom Tillis and win this race. I would have it starting out as tilt Republican, but again, like with Georgia, whoever the Democrats and Republicans put up really do matter in these elections. So Georgia, based on that, would start out at tilt Republican. Michigan, we did see in 2024 go very closely for Elisa Slotkin to 0.34%. This one, the Democrats got 49.1, Republicans 47.7. So Democrats won nationally by 1.4. 1.4. Michigan was only 0.34. So that puts the Republicans potentially on striking distance of flipping the Senate seat. But when you look back to 2020, the Democrats won here by 1.7. The Republicans won the national vote by about 2.3. So it really sets Michigan up for a very close race, but it depends on how the Democrats and Republicans are able to get out their voters in Michigan. The last time in 2018 when the Democrats, they won it by 6.5 points. They won the national vote by over 20 points, and it was only a 6.5% win. The difference here is President Trump will not be on the ballot like he was in 2024 and in 2020. So this will be the first Michigan Senate race where Trump has not been on the ballot since 2018. And that time it was a likely Democratic win. Without President Trump on the ballot to help boost voters for the Republicans in Michigan, I would start Michigan out as lean Democrat based on the Democrats winning the popular vote by 1. That is potentially because President Trump is best at getting out Republican voters in Michigan, and the Republicans in Michigan have not done too great without Trump on the ballot since 2016. 2018 is really the only example, and they didn't do too great. Neither was 2022, where Gretchen Whitmer got reelected. That would put Michigan for the lean Democratic in that scenario. Now we have the state of New Hampshire. New Hampshire, we saw a vote for Kamala Harris by about 3 points, and in 2024 there was no Senate race. 2022 there was. And this is one where the Democrats and the Republicans tied the national vote. Republicans got 0.1% better, and the Democrats won New Hampshire by about 9 points. Now, in all fairness to the Republicans, they're probably going to put up better candidates than Don Bolduc was in 2022. But again, at 1 point for the Democrats, does New Hampshire reach that number again? Well, maybe. In 2020, where the Republicans won by 2.3%, the Democrats won New Hampshire in a 15.6% margin. In 2018, there was no Senate race. 2016, it was a very close race where the Democrats won the popular vote by 9. So New Hampshire is really a jump ball because this is a state where it's really candidate dependent. If it's Chris Sununu, I think New Hampshire probably starts out as lean Republican. If it's not Chris Sununu and the Democrats go up against Scott Brown or another Republican, it probably starts out as lean Democrat. There's really a tough one to say because the recent election history in New Hampshire suggests it should probably be a likely Democratic win, and maybe it is a likely Democratic win, but depending on who the candidates are for New Hampshire could very much affect that. 2024, the presidential race showed it should be likely, or it should be lean Democrat, so I'm leaving it as lean Democrat right now, but New Hampshire is a very wonky one that could potentially go one way or the other. Lastly, we have the state of Maine. And Maine is a really, really tricky one because, again, this is all about Susan Collins. Maine in 2024 voted for the Democratic aligning independent, Angus King, by about 17 points, a safe Democratic win, on the same ballot, where the Democrats won the popular vote by about 1.4. In 2022, there was no Senate race. In 2020, Susan Collins won by 8.6% on a ballot where the Republicans were winning the popular vote by about 2.3. And then in 2018, King again won by about 19 points. So it's really just candidate dependent here, and for the Republicans in Maine, they're lucky they have Susan Collins, who seems to be able to win at a statewide level. But at 2020, she won by 8.6 when the Republicans won by 2.3. The Democrats are winning by 1. Well, that can at the very least bring Susan Collins down to probably about 5 to 6 points or so, which would put her right on the edge between being a likely and lean Republican win. And I think there's a realistic possibility we see Susan Collins win re-election in Maine by about 5 points or less, due to the fact that Democrats winning the popular vote for 2026 on the Senate map by 1. So right now, based on the 1-point Democratic congressional vote win for the popular vote of the Senate map, this would have Republicans at about 53, Democrats 47, which is the same compilation of the Senate map right now as currently is in Washington. But there's a lot of really close races in Georgia, Michigan, North Carolina, New Hampshire, and Maine that really could impact whether the Republicans grow their majority or whether the Democrats start clawing back and trying to get closer to 50 and maybe be set up for a better night in 2028 or 2030 at flipping back the Senate. But it's really interesting, and I think shows how close the Senate elections really could be and how important the candidates the parties put up really could matter. Because getting the right candidates in New Hampshire or Georgia could give the Republicans 2 extra Senate seats, while getting the right Democratic candidate in North Carolina and maybe finding the right Democratic candidate in Maine could flip 2 Republican Senate seats to the Democrats. So it is really interesting and shows the importance of getting the right candidates for these races. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a like, leave a comment below telling me your thoughts, and also remember to click subscribe as I post a new video every single day. Thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you in a future video.